situation.
Antonio Guterres, thank you very much indeed for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. And that, alas, is it for this programme. My thanks to all of our guests. Do join me again for the next Frost Over the World. Until then, goodbye for now, and thanks again to Antonio and all the guests.
What Gaddafi has done, he dismantled or destroyed the system in the country.
As chaos and violence sweep across Libya,
they're living through fear, they're living through a nightmare.
They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
Al Jazeera hears from those who have lived in fear of Gaddafi's regime.
We don't want him to leave. We want to arrest him. 42 years is too much.
Libya, a state of terror. At this time on Al Jazeera.
14 competing teams, 13 different venues, 3 host nations. Cricket is part of the fabric of life here, and this competition is the pinnacle of the one-day game. We'll be bringing you all the action and reaction from India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. The Cricket World Cup on Al Jazeera.
From local traders to international finance, it's commerce that makes the world go round. For global companies and developing markets, communication is the currency, and information is the most valuable commodity. Counting the cost at this time on Al Jazeera.
A debilitating condition afflicting millions of women across the developing world.
Sometimes it is not possible to cure a patient with fistula. We have to prepare her psychologically.
Revealing the human stories behind fistula and its intimate connection to poverty. A powerful new series exploring global maternal health. Birthrights, at this time on Al Jazeera.
It was a revolution which ended half a century of autocratic rule and inspired a wave of public protest that swept across the Arab world.
Internet, Facebook, Twitter, they were not the revolution.
In an exclusive two-part documentary, Raghi Omar traces the roots and repercussions of this uprising and examines why 23 years of dictatorship fell in only 28 days. The Death of Fear, at this time on Al Jazeera.
This is Al Jazeera.
Hello, welcome to the News Hour. I'm Adrian Finnegan from the Al Jazeera News Centre here in Doha. We're bringing you the world's top stories, and we'll be live in Egypt, Italy, and of course Libya, where the uprising against Muammar Gaddafi continues. Anti-government forces in Ras Lanuf celebrate after hanging on to the city and holding back an attack by loyalists. Fresh clashes in AlJazeera are said to have left dozens dead. In Benghazi, funerals are held for those killed in a blast at a weapons depot. In other news, cutting corruption and raising wages, China's premier outlines his targets for the coming year. And Italy's prime minister is due in court to face corruption charges. A deadly assault is underway by loyalists of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi against those who oppose him in AlJazeera. Now, the battle is crucial for Gaddafi's forces to secure their stronghold in Tripoli. Elsewhere, opposition fighters have been taking casualties in the ongoing battle for Ras Lanuf. Rebels are rushing from surrounding areas to reinforce those fighting to retain the key oil town. Al Jazeera's Hoda Abdelhamid is there.
This is the last checkpoint before the town of Ras Lanuf. Now it's in the hands of the opposition. But this place was the scene of heavy fighting on Friday. The opposition here says they came under shelling for several hours by pro-Gaddafi loyalists. Now they say they managed to flank the pro-Gaddafi forces from both sides, and that the pro-Gaddafi forces have retreated down that road about 30 to 40 kilometers down this road. It is the road that leads to Sirte, the hometown of Muammar Gaddafi, and many of the volunteers here now say they are ready to take their fight to Sirte.
Let's get an overview now of what's happening in Libya. For 3 weeks, Libyans have been locked in deadly clashes between Gaddafi's forces and rebel fighters. Lawrence Lee takes a look at the ongoing battle.
This is the sound of a town fighting to avoid being overrun.
What is happening now is heavy bombing on the city by tanks and heavy weapons and mortars and extremely heavy weapons. And the rebels are struggling to resist with very primitive means. And they have no mercy. They're very brutal. There's a large number of injured and a lot of people killed on the streets. They have no mercy on civilians. The tanks that belong to the regime are attacking anything and everything indiscriminately.
The Gaddafi security forces are gathering up at the outskirts of the city and preparing for another attack. And the revolutionaries here are bracing themselves and reorganizing their lines to prepare themselves to defend the city.
Undoubtedly, the suggestion of AlJazeera being gradually taken back by Gaddafi will be seen as a sign that he's regaining ground, although it's a mixed picture. The rebels, for instance, say they've taken Ras Lanouf and are on the march towards Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. There's still plenty of resolve here, and they know they have a prized town. It's got oil.
At the beginning there, you see from here up to 10 kilometers, the port, the oil seaport, that's for exporting oil. You see, Rastal, that's the biggest in Libya here.
The goal in front of us is to topple the regime. There weren't many martyrs yesterday, despite the fact that they were more powerful than us.
And Brega, further east, also still seems to be out of Gaddafi's control. Two things are becoming clear. First of all is that increasingly the fighting's being concentrated around oil towns, which it's hardly surprising Gaddafi's so keen to reclaim, while his assets are being seized all over Europe. His forces are also keen to destroy arms dumps in the hands of rebels. This one went up in flames in Benghazi, although it's not clear how. More than a dozen were killed, the funerals demonstrating once again how united Benghazi is against the government in Tripoli. The other development is that it's clear the fighting's becoming harder, and all the reports from the frontline towns suggest more people being killed than in previous days. The main reason why the two sides are so deadlocked is because neither is particularly strong. But all the same, it's hardly surprising the words civil war are beginning to appear more frequently to describe what's happening in Libya. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Let's get a live update now from the east of the country. Al Jazeera's Tony Bertley is in Benghazi, which is in rebel hands. Tony, we heard very briefly in Lawrence Lee's report there about the arms dump that exploded close to Benghazi last night. Funerals have been held there today for those who were killed. Any clearer yet as to what happened?
Still no definitive reason for that.